Hey everyone, welcome. I am Mr. Bo for Planet Destiny, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the ZEAL Vector. This is the brand new raid sidearm that can be acquired from defeating Vossix in the heroic mode of the raid. The perks on this weapon include Whirlwind's Curse, which is on the other raid weapons. We then have Smart Drift Control, Accurized Ballistics, Field Choke, Reactive Reload. We then have Hand Loaded, Speed Reload, Quick Draw, and then Quick Reaction. Gain increased agility while the Reactive Reload perk is active. So what's interesting here is this sidearm actually has the same two perks that the Raid Hand Cannon has. The Raid Hand Cannon also has Reactive Reload and Quick Reaction. Taking a look at the stats though, we have a rate of fire of 98, impact 8, range 25, stability 74, and reload 88. This weapon can hold 15 in the magazine, unlike some other sidearms like the Trespasser for instance, which can hold 18, and of course it can drop in Void, Solar, and Arc. Speaking of the Trespasser, the perks on the ZEAL Vector kind of make it a legendary version of the Trespasser, and maybe not as quite good sidearm as the Trespasser, but we'll take a look at that in just a second. Firstly, let's take a look at the recoil pattern on this weapon, because it does have a pretty major vertical kickback. As you can see here, this is me spamming down the trigger, trying to fire this weapon as quickly as I could, and you'll notice the gun just goes straight up into the air, which can be controlled if you're firing at a steady rate, and the fact that it is just straight up vertical makes it easier to control, as to something like the Trespasser where it sort of veers off to the right a bit. Also, here's a clip of what this weapon actually sounds like. So now let's go into what this weapon is actually like. We'll start off with it in PvE. Now this does have the benefit of being able to kill Fallen a lot easier with the Whirlwind's Curse perk, but it isn't really too noticeable. The perk of Reactive Reload comes in very handy taking out small enemies like dregs, but the perk of Quick Reaction doesn't seem really needed in PvE. It doesn't seem like you'd really use that very much in a PvE scenario. What's more is this weapon doesn't really seem to have a place. Yes, it's really good for taking out smaller enemies like dregs, however when it comes to something like a captain, it's going to take you quite a while to actually take that captain down. You're more likely to put on something like a shotgun, and then when it comes to bosses like in the raid, again you're not going to want to be using this sidearm. You're going to want to be using a sniper rifle or something that can deal a little bit more damage. So personally, I don't see this really having a place in PvE. I haven't really seen anyone use sidearms too much in PvE. They're not really needed. I see sidearms as more of a PvP weapon because, as I said, you want shotguns or a fusion rifle to take out those enemies at close range, or you're going to switch to a sniper rifle to deal more damage. So this weapon doesn't really have a place in PvE too much, but does it have a place in PvP? Well, as I said at the beginning of this video, think of this weapon as a legendary version of the Trespasser. On screen you'll be seeing me using this weapon in PvP, and I was actually doing fairly well with it in a game of Rumble. If you come up against someone who's competent with shotguns, you're probably not going to win the engagement. The range drop off on this weapon is quite severe. You're not going to be getting anyone from more than a couple of feet away. However, if you're able to control this weapon's recoil and fire pretty quickly, you can get the slip on some enemies and take them down. That will then activate the perk of Reactive Reload, and then again if you can get the advantage on another player, you'll be taking them out. However, the 15 in the mag here and the 5 in reserve isn't really enough to take out more than 2 people unless you pick up special ammo. Of course, most people will use sidearms to finish off an enemy once they've put a few bullets into them with their primary, and I definitely think this is a worthwhile sidearm for PvP. Quick Reaction does play more into a PvP role than it does in PvE, because as soon as you get that first kill, you're going to be able to close the distance on another enemy. However, Reactive Reload doesn't last too long and will only stay active for 3 seconds, unlike the Trespasser's Unrepentant, which I believe lasts for around 7 seconds. So overall, what do I think of this weapon? Well, I would say it's not really worth your time in PvE. If you're a fan of sidearms and you aren't using the Trespasser, I would definitely give this a shot. It might not match up to other sidearms like the Havoc Pigeon or the Jabberhucky, but with the Reactive Reload perk as well as the Quick Reaction perk, it does make it a fairly viable option in PvP. However, if you aren't a fan of sidearms, I don't think this is going to change your mind, and it's probably something you're just going to want to infuse into your other weapons. But that is what I think of the ZEAL Vector, the brand new sidearm that can be acquired through the Wrath of the Machine raid on Heroic. If you'd like to, feel free to check out my channel, there'll be a link in the description below. But I am Mr. Bo for Planet Destiny.